It happens quietly. You sit with your budget, pen in hand or cursor blinking on a screen, and before the first number even lands, emotion walks in. You feel guilt about last month, hope about next month, a subtle pride when you tighten the numbers, a hint of fear when you leave them too loose. That spreadsheet, it's not just math, it's a mirror, and what reflects back is not just your spending, but your state of being. The tension between how you feel and how you want to appear, between who you've been and who you're trying to become. We think we're budgeting, but what we're often doing is storytelling. We overspend when we're happy, celebration disguised as connection. We hoard when we're anxious, safety confused with scarcity. We revise our categories not because they stopped working, but because we want the illusion of control. Budgeting by emotion feels like intuition, but it moves like volatility. It's a quiet violence, dressed in good intentions. Epictetus warned us without spreadsheets, without banks, without credit cards. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. This includes money. Budgets are not neutral. They're shaped by our interpretations of value, of security, of shame, of status. The problem is not in the numbers. The problem is in the weight we assign to them. Emotional budgeting is not freedom. It is reaction masked as wisdom, a false calm that trembles at the slightest shift in mood. Kahneman called it effective forecasting error, the failure to predict how we'll feel after we spend. We believe the purchase will relieve us. We believe the restriction will purify us, and we're wrong, again and again. But instead of changing our framework, we blame our willpower. We hope we'll be stronger next month, more disciplined, less reactive. And so the cycle loops. But what would Epictetus do if he saw your budget today? He wouldn't ask how much you're spending. He'd ask why you're spending it. He'd see your budget not as a ledger, but as a compass. And if your emotions are the storm, shifting, seductive, unsteady, he'd hand you something sturdier, a moral anchor, a set of questions, a new form of pause. Imagine a ship caught in a storm with a broken compass. The ocean doesn't care about your intentions, and neither does your bank account. If you don't recalibrate, you drift. Slowly, expensively, until you no longer recognize the coast you were aiming for. This video is not here to make you feel bad. It's here to help you feel aligned, to show you that budgeting doesn't begin with numbers. It begins with naming what moves you, naming what drives you, and then choosing, quietly, repeatedly, with intention, to spend like the person you're trying to remember you are. There's a promise we whisper to ourselves again and again, like a bedtime story for adults who feel ashamed of their spending. Next month, I'll be better. We say it with sincerity. We mean it. But the truth is, next month doesn't exist. At least not the version we believe in. The one where we wake up more disciplined, more centered, less tired. The one where temptations shrink and our choices expand. That version of the future self is a fantasy, a compassionate illusion that delays accountability. The Stoics were brutally honest with the present. Epictetus didn't trust good intentions. He trusted action. First, he said, tell yourself what kind of person you want to be. Then do what you have to do. He wouldn't ask how you plan to budget next month. He'd ask what your next action says about your character. Because budgeting, like any form of virtue, is not a plan. It's a practice, not a future goal, a current mirror. Behavioral science exposes the same trap. Kahneman revealed our minds tend to overestimate our future rationality. We imagine that tomorrow we'll feel less tempted, less emotional, more in control. But the reality? The same emotions will visit us, the same stress, the same loneliness, the same desire to feel rewarded. What changes isn't the moment. What must change is the framework. That's why emotional budgeting fails, because it is built on hope, not structure. It assumes we'll become someone we haven't trained to be. We fantasize about future self-control instead of practicing present self-awareness. And every time we say, "I'll fix it next cycle," we reinforce the loop of delay. And delay is the enemy of discipline. So instead of asking, "How can I do better next month?" ask something sharper, closer, more stoic. What would a wise person do with this $10 right now? Not your ideal self, not your wounded self. A wise self, calm, honest, aware. Because wisdom isn't delayed. It's immediate. It doesn't ask you to be perfect. It just asks you to be present. A budget built on future reform will collapse. A budget built on present alignment will endure. Your money doesn't need a hero version of you. It needs a quiet, awake version of you, today. There's a certain satisfaction in punishing ourselves with discipline. Like if we just restrict enough, deny enough, cut enough, the guilt will fade and our virtue will rise. We call it budgeting, but often it's a disguised form of penance. We try to undo our spending mistakes, not with reflection, but with self-flagellation. We strip down our categories, cancel all joy, and live like monks until the pressure breaks. Then comes the binge, the backlash, the quiet shame of falling off a standard we never should have built. But Stoicism is not about suffering for its own sake. Seneca warned us gently and wisely. Voluntary discomfort is about preparation, not punishment. It's about choosing simplicity, not as a whip, but as a shield. True temperance does not scream. It calibrates. It does not punish. It prioritizes. The problem isn't that we want to cut back. It's that we cut without compassion. That we believe pain is proof we're improving. And in the absence of pleasure, we expect peace to arrive. Forgetting that peace does not grow in the soil of shame. Neuroscience confirms what the ancients intuited. Harsh restriction leads to rebound. Dopamine deprivation does not build strength. It builds pressure. And pressure without purpose explodes. So instead of punishing your spending, align it. Don't ask what you shouldn't be buying. Ask what's no longer in harmony with your peace. Don't delete joy. Reframe it. What brings genuine restoration, not momentary relief? What brings energy tomorrow, not just silence tonight? Write down 3 expenses that drain your peace, not your bank account. Things you buy to numb, to prove, to escape. Then, not with guilt, but with grace, commit to reducing them, not as a punishment, but as a practice of compassion. You're not cutting to be virtuous. You're cutting to breathe. This is what the Stoics called control, not rigidity, but rhythm, not austerity, but awareness. To live beneath your means, not because you're scared of the future, but because you're anchored in what truly matters today. To spend less, not out of fear, but out of respect, for your time, your energy, your values. Pain is not your budgeting plan. Peace is. Let your decisions reflect that. Let your numbers point back to a life that feels quiet, intentional, yours. Look closely at your budget, and you'll find more than numbers. You'll find your past, your priorities, your fears, your longing. A budget is not just a spreadsheet. It's an autobiography written in transactions. It tells the story of what you truly value, where you feel lack, where you feel worthy, where you try to keep control. Every category holds a layer of your inner world. That recurring entertainment line, it might not be about fun, it might be about escape. That oversized grocery bill, maybe it reflects a fear of scarcity, not a love of abundance. And that forgotten subscription still quietly draining your account, it could be a symbol of inertia, of not wanting to face a decision. This is why the Stoics insist we examine impressions before we accept them. Epictetus taught, when something happens, the only thing in your power is your response. The same is true for your financial life. That moment you press confirm payment or walk out with a bag, that's not the moment of control. The real moment of control came long before, when you first accepted the thought, I need this, I deserve this, this will help. And if you never examine that thought, you're budgeting in the dark. Try viewing your budget not as a plan, but as a letter to your future self. Would they read it and feel respected or confused? Would they thank you for the sacrifices made, or wonder why you avoided what mattered most? This is where philosophy enters the realm of spending, where values become visible. Because how we treat money is never just about money, it's about meaning. The stories we try to write with our money are often silent. I'm responsible. I'm not falling behind. I'm still in control. But the deeper question is the story you're telling true? Or are you using money to speak in symbols no one else can hear? Each week, take a moment, not just to tally the numbers, but to reread the narrative. Ask, what story was I trying to write? What emotion was leading the pen? What would a more aligned, more rooted version of me write instead? Because your budget is not just a financial tool, it's a spiritual one, a reflective one that, if used with courage, becomes a quiet declaration of who you're choosing to be. There is a type of budget that looks free but feels hollow. It promises adaptability, ease, spontaneity, but underneath, it hides avoidance. We call it flexible, but often it's just a softer word for vague. A story we tell ourselves so we don't have to commit. We think we're being gentle, but often we're being evasive. The ego disguises lack of structure as wisdom. It whispers, you don't need limits, you're intuitive, you'll figure it out. But intuition without honesty is not alignment, it's drift. Every time we categorize expenses as miscellaneous, or one-time, or unexpected, we chip away at our clarity. We build a system of fog, one where nothing is tracked deeply enough to challenge us. And then we wonder why we feel financially scattered. Stoicism teaches that the first step to virtue is to name things rightly, to see clearly what is, before we try to change what might be. Behavioral science confirms this. The choice justification fallacy reveals how we rationalize decisions after the fact, especially financial ones. That was a good deal. I needed a break. I've been working hard. Why? But these justifications are often built not on wisdom, but on identity defense. We don't want to admit we lost control, so we redefine control. That flexibility? Sometimes it's just denial in disguise. One man realized this when he looked at his budget and saw a growing category called miscellaneous. It wasn't a category, it was a confession, a place where unexamined spending hid. He renamed it denial. Not to be cruel, but to be free. Just the act of naming cut 17% of his unconscious spending. Because once you name the truth, it starts to shift. Imagine a budget built not on function, but on virtue. Categories like temperance, wisdom, joy, vanity. Now classify your purchases, not what they bought, but what they served. That takeout, did it serve rest or did it serve escape? That new jacket, was it joy or was it comparison? This is not about shame. It's about shining light, about realigning your map so that where your money flows, your values are reflected. Because true freedom is not found in flexibility without foundation. It's found in structure that breathes, in limits that don't shrink you, but reveal you. And once you stop hiding behind the word flexible, you might discover something better than permission. You might discover peace. At the end of all numbers, beyond income and expenses, beneath every spreadsheet and digital tracker, there lives a quieter question. Who am I becoming through this budget? That's what Epictetus would ask. Not, are you saving enough? But, are you spending in alignment with your nature? He would remind us that the role of budgeting is not to create constraint, but to reflect character. Because money is not neutral. It is expressive. Every choice it touches becomes a signal of inner values. A budget that works is not one that impresses. It's one that reveals. One that allows you to sleep, to breathe, to walk through your day without the weight of financial self-betrayal. Marcus Aurelius said, What stands in the way becomes the way. Emotional spending isn't a flaw to erase, it's a doorway to walk through. It shows us where we're aching, where we need more truth, more courage, more structure. Every moment of misalignment is also a moment of awakening, if you let it be. Modern thinkers echo the same wisdom. Morgan Housel wrote, "You can't measure what peace costs, but you feel it. A good budget doesn't shout at you. It doesn't dominate your attention or drown your joy. It hums in the background like a well-tuned instrument. You feel it in calm mornings, in decisions made without panic, in the subtle but steady rise of self-trust. So stop budgeting to impress. Start budgeting to express. Stop chasing the version of yourself that's finally disciplined, and instead walk with the version of yourself that is already capable, already wise, already enough, but waiting for consistency. Your budget should not be a war, it should be a mirror. And that mirror, when held with honesty and care, reflects not just numbers, but dignity. This video is for educational purposes only. Always consider your circumstances with care. If this message helped you see your budget as more than math, if it helped you feel closer to peace than performance, write alignment in the comments. Like this video, subscribe, watch the others. And remember, your numbers aren't just financial, they're spiritual. When money and virtue walk together, freedom is no longer a dream, it becomes a direction.